Welcome to the Power in Motion podcast, the show for women who want to develop a kinder relationship with their body so you can feel healthy, happy, and confident without restricting food, doing torturous exercise, or constantly worrying about the number on the scale. I'm your host, Kim Hagel, size-inclusive fitness specialist and certified non-diet health and life coach specializing in body image. This podcast is here to provide weight-neutral, health at every size aligned information and coaching on sustainable habits and mindset shifts so you can feel your very best in the body you have right now. Let's lace up our runners and go for a walk while we chat. Well, hello, friend, and welcome to the Joyful Movement Show. This is episode 58 and the first episode of season 2 and of 2022. So happy New Year. I hope you all had a great holiday season celebrating with those you love. For me and our family, we had a really nice, quiet, relaxing time at home. I actually took 2 full weeks off from my business and did absolutely no work and just focused on relaxation and quality time with the family, which was lovely and so needed. I'm really looking forward to 2022 and seeing what the year has in store. Now, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on New Year's resolutions or goal setting? I get the sense that New Year's resolutions are maybe not as much of a thing anymore, but people are more focused on goals or intentions for the year ahead. So I wanted to talk about goals and resolutions, intentions on these first couple of episodes of this new year. On next week's episode, we're going to talk about goal setting in general. But today I really wanted to focus on the number one goal that people set at the new year, which is losing weight. We know that weight loss ads and marketing are in full force right now, and that many of us are feeling pressure to lose weight after the holidays. So the temptation to jump into a challenge or program of some sort is pretty high. So I felt it important to chat about this and provide some good quality, evidence-based information so you can make the decision that's best for you. Most people who set a weight loss goal do so in order to be healthy. So I wanted to bring on a health expert to have this conversation with. On today's episode, I'm joined by a recurring guest and someone who's come to be a very dear friend of mine. Dr. Maggie Landes is back with us today, sharing her wisdom about health, weight cycling, in other words, losing and gaining weight again and again over time, and how dieting and weight cycling can actually negatively impact your health, and what to focus on instead of weight if you really want to improve your health. Maggie Landes is a board-certified physician, public health nutritionist, and anti-diet wellness expert. She created her signature Get Eat Fluenced coaching program to help women who are exasperated with chronic dieting be able to fix their food overwhelm and live a full and unrestricted life, pursuing their personal passions without the distraction of rigid eating behavior. She's also the creator and host of the Eat Fluencer podcast, where she and her guests dig into the mindset work required to construct a healthy, complete, and high-quality life unlimited by the oppression of diet culture. So let's jump into the interview with Maggie. Well, Happy New Year, Maggie.
Thank you, Kim. I'm so glad to be back.
Well, it's so nice to have you back on the Joyful Movement Show as a recurring guest. Why don't you, for the sake of our listeners that maybe haven't heard from you before, just introduce yourself and tell us what you've been up to lately?
Sure. Well, I'm Maggie Landes. I'm a physician and a public health nutritionist, but what I do now is work, as you do, Kim, in this anti-diet wellness space, really trying to disrupt diet culture from our preconceived idea of health and fitness and eating. That's what I do. I do that all the time, nonstop.
Yes, you do.
Yes. I just believe so strongly. I mean, the first step, I think, is just to let people have an awareness of what this is, because it's not our fault. It's a cultural construct that we are all conditioned by. Nobody's kind of exempt. And so a lot of the work is unlearning. I mean, that's what I tell my clients all the time. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to probably actually teach you something new to cram into your head and memorize. We've done that.
Yeah.
So I look at it more of a systematic unlearning of all these ideas that are just still, even now, so prevalent in, as you know, your industry, my industry. It's kind of the normative model.
So true, so true. And I'm so thankful that there are people like you and myself and so many others out there that are doing this work and helping to raise that awareness and help people with their unlearning process.
Yeah, definitely. And there's more. I'm
Mm.
hopeful that I do see more and more people being vocal about this and
Hmm.
people sort of standing up to it with authority. So I think we're making progress. It's slow though. We've got like 100 years of cultural conditioning to unravel. It's going to take us a minute.
Yeah, yeah, maybe a few. Yep. Well, it's the start of a new year, so I want to talk about New Year's resolutions and those kinds of things today. But before we do that, I'm curious, do you make New Year's resolutions to yourself? Do you have any
You
goals for the
know,
new year?
I don't anymore. I used to like really do it like old school, write them down and make
Hmm.
little checklists and keep up that I'm going to do such and such every day. That stuff always seemed to go south by probably the third week of January. So I I like continuously sort of reevaluating what I'm doing personally and
Hmm.
professionally and in my relationships and with my finances, like time to time over the year. I think waiting till January is like put so much pressure on.
Hmm.
This is just an arbitrary deal. I mean, it's just this
Yeah.
is there's no magic between December 31st and January 1st, right? It's the
Nope.
same difference as August 11th and August 12th. It's just like 2 days that are back
Yep.
to back. But we make such a big deal out of it. I don't think we need any more pressure. I think we're all under plenty of pressure. I mean,
You're
part of
right.
me is I'm like, it's 2022 because the last thing I remember in some regard is that it was 2019 last time I checked. And
It does seem like we've fallen into a bit of a time warp, doesn't it?
yeah, it's crazy. So I don't have any specific resolutions this
Mhm.
year. Do you? I'm curious. Do you?
No, no, and like you, I don't set resolutions anymore, and like you, they tend to fizzle out pretty quickly in January, and statistically, we're not alone in that. I think they say something like 91% of New Year's resolutions um, end or are fail within 6 weeks, something
Right.
like
Well,
that.
people do
Yeah.
they think they have to do this like massive overhaul. That's the
Hmm.
problem. It's not just
Hmm.
like a gentle suggestion to
Oh yeah.
yourself. It's
No, of
like this
course not.
crazy 180-degree U-turn. And
Yeah.
of course we can't do that.
No,
You're
no.
not gonna like fix your marriage and become wealthy and lose weight and do this all like in the same time in three
No.
weeks. Come on.
No, no, we set the bar way too high for ourselves, and of course, it's not sustainable. It's not practical. But I think for me, it's more. I just try to be intentional, like you. Like I set the intention to just be intentional with how I'm using my time, where I'm spending my resources, who I'm spending my time with, and the relationships that I have, and just kind of like you say, constantly coming back and reevaluating what's working and what isn't, and changing the goals as they need to change.
Right. Now, I'm not going to lie. I do like myself a new calendar with blank
Oh,
pages,
and colored markers.
colored felt pins.
Oh, yeah,
So I do indulge a little bit in that. But yeah,
all about it.
I just think we would do better collectively by taking a little bit of that pressure off and then maybe, spreading it out. The idea of reevaluating is a good idea,
Mhm.
but I think it can be done way more gently and way more continuously through the year and
Mhm.
not waiting to something magic
Yeah,
happen.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's your advice,
There
listeners,
you go.
is don't set New Year's resolutions. But if you need any more convincing, I pulled some other stats, Maggie. So I wanted to share these. For those that do make New Year's resolutions, 48% of those people make the resolution that they want to lose weight.
That even sounds low. Honestly, I bet it's higher, especially if it was just women. Don't you think that would be higher?
Hmm. Because the other stat that I pulled was that 56% of women are on a diet at any given time. So, yeah, it does seem low that only 48%, but maybe it's because New Year's is so cliche that maybe they're just not making that goal
It's not
at that
right.
time. I don't know.
Well, it's also I'm not sure everybody who's on a diet identifies as being a dieter. However
True.
these kind of statistics come from. Those are just the people that say, yes,
Hmm.
I am.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you and I know there's so much kind of covert diet behavior that people don't identify as, if they're not on whatever, getting Jenny Craig boxes in the mail, then they're like not dieting, right?
Yeah,
So
or not weighing and measuring all their little portions, then it's not a diet. And I've had episodes in the past about, is your healthy lifestyle a diet in disguise? So you're right. Any form of restriction, I tend to lump into that dieting category. So we'll use that broad term to mean all of those other things as well. But when it comes down to it, the big reason that people are setting their weight loss goals at New Year's or any other time is because they want to be healthy. Health is always cited as the number one reason that people set this weight loss goal. So I thought, who better to come in and talk about this topic than the doctor herself? So,
boy, that's a lot of pressure, Kim.
All the pressure's on you. So broadly speaking, what are your thoughts about this whole thing about health and weight and setting weight loss as a New Year's goal in an effort to try to be healthier?
Right. Well, see, the thing is, this is really fascinating because when people come to me and are just can't shake this idea that they need to lose weight, and I say, why do you feel like you need to lose weight? And they say, because they want to improve their health. And then I say, why do you believe that losing weight will improve your health? And it's like silence. Like they don't know. They haven't thought any further than that. Like they just assumed, because of the way our culture poses it, that weight and health are like synonymous words, that they're inseparable, and that asking why you believe they're related is like, that thought hasn't crossed their mind because they just are, and that's interesting because it happens universally with people that approach movement, and they legitimately want to improve their health. I mean, they really do. They say, I want to live to see my kids have babies. I want to live so that I can get a promotion at work. I want to not have diabetes like my grandma. But they have health motivation.
Sure.
But they are pairing it with this thin ideal and this weight loss fascination that is a cultural measure, not a health metric. And then it's just doesn't work like that, so it's interesting. The first thing we have to recognize is they're not the same word.
Right.
And you can pursue health without pursuing weight loss. And you can also pursue weight loss and not be healthy. Like they're, and you can choose to do that if you want, but I think you need to have absolute clarity. What are you actually pursuing? Because this, I want to go on a diet and set New Year's weight loss goals so I can be healthier. You have a very gross misunderstanding of what those two things are. So really separating this, and like, as you mentioned, I'm a doctor. So I come from this kind of clinical background. And the problem is this gets really challenging for people when they go to their doctor or their, provider, and the provider is laying the foundation that health and weight are the same thing. So, I kind of can hardly fault the average layperson who's not a medical professional when they go to see a medical professional and are fed that same line. Why wouldn't they believe that they're the same thing?
Yeah.
So it's really tricky, but they're not the same.
They're not the same.
They're not the same. They're not the same. So weight loss is not in and of itself a health goal.
No,
it's just not. So
and
there's the podcast. We'll see you next week.
There we go. That's it. That's all there is to it. But yet we find, okay, so here's what I tend to notice, especially being in the fitness industry, and New Year's is like the time when everybody comes to the gym and they've all got weight loss goals. And it seems that in my observations, a lot of people lose and gain the same weight over and over and over again, whether they set that goal at New Year's, or maybe September is another big time where there's a reset, and sometimes at the start of summer. But it seems that these certain seasons of the year, we start all over again, right? Like, oh, I've kind of fallen off the rails and I got to lose this weight again, or I'm not going to be healthy. So what happens when we lose and gain the same weight over and over again?
Well, there is this, and I don't believe, maybe you have had a podcast about this sort of set point theory. Have you talked about that a little bit?
Not really. So go ahead and explain that.
So to make this super simple, essentially everybody has a set point weight range. It's a range. It's not a single number. And it's probably a pretty wide range. I mean, it may be even, 10, 20 pounds either way. But it's kind of your genetic potential. It's the same way that, you are a certain height and your hair color is a certain shade of brown and you have a certain sense of humor and just certain things that are just kind of part of you. And they can be changed a little, but generally speaking, that most of what influences that is out of your control. It is early prenatal influences, it is genetic influences, it is early environmental exposures, it is a lot of environmental factors and socioeconomic factors, all these things that kind of create your physical body. What you can do to change your physical body is very limited, which is basically what everybody thinks of as this like eating and exercise, that if they can manage those things, they can become any shape they want. But the influence of those two things is actually very small compared to the influence of all the other things. So you can sort of manhandle and micromanage your size for a little while. And that's why this stuff works for a little while, because, it looks good on paper. Like if we were living algebra problems, it looks pretty good on paper. This whole like calories in, calories out, and here's my little tracker, and I ate this and I worked out this, and it just should be like a nice, clean little math problem. But the situation is we're not like robots. Our bodies are a dynamic biologic system, and it adapts to input and output, and it changes. And that's good. We want to. That's how we survive as a species. So you can only kind of override that and white knuckle that built-in size control for so long. And then you literally can't. It's not a matter of after 8 weeks, I'm just tired of eating salads and I'm tired of waking up early to go to the gym or whatever. It's not you failing your plan or running. I know you talk about motivation all the time and willpower. You're not running out of the ability to do something. It is, you are fighting harder and harder and harder against your body. And that is like going to Vegas. Like the house always wins. It just does. Like you may win a hand, you may win a little money, but ultimately the casino has to win at the end or they would go out of business because they're not, so it's these short-term wins. I'm doing wins because to me, I think it's a, that's out for discussion whether or not that's actually a win. But, you do this 8, 10, 12 week little program and you lose some weight and you get more muscles and you're all show all your friends and buy new clothes and all this stuff. And it's like a ticking time bomb and you can't override that. So then it comes back on. Your body is literally fighting you to get back to your set point range. That's where you're designed to be. Once you're in that range, and people say, well, how do I find out what mine is? Because that's the first question. How do I know what mine is? Like, I mean, like, is there like a test or whatever? Well, the problem is you're not going to know what it is until you stop dieting. Because
or restricting.
Restricting and micromanaging your physiology. You have to kind of leave it alone. You have to see where it settles out. And then once you're in the optimized biologic range for your body, for your potential, you will find it very easy to keep your weight in that range without little tiny details, without working and efforting so much to try to manage it. If you have to work really hard to maintain your weight, you are probably not at your set point weight. And there's a lot more to it, but the problem, besides the fact it is completely a defeating psychological exercise to lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight. I mean, we have done that. Like when we go through these cycles 3, 4, 6 times a year for 10, 20, 30, 50 years. I mean, we're talking about over the course of time, our body having to adapt to the gain and loss of thousands of pounds, truly over time. And that's very, challenging, that's really confusing, that's really stressful to the body at a biologic level. It's the human body operates on stability and kind of steady state. You know, the word in medicine is homeostasis. That's a
Yeah.
nerd word, but it's predictable, and there's lots of feedback loops and internal mechanisms to make sure that everything operates and can stay in a, you know, sort of operating range. Nothing too extreme, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't function off of chaos and random events. That's not a good survival mechanism. So this kind of chaos of my weight's going up, my weight's going down, my weight's going up, my weight's going down. I'm eating a bunch, I'm binge eating, I'm restricting a bunch, I'm working out like a crazy person, I'm totally sedentary. I'm, you know, this back forth is hard hormonally and hard physiologically. I mean, there's some evidence that affects the like inflammatory cytokines, little tiny, we're talking like molecule level issues. It's way more than just like the size of your pants. It can be damaging to your organs and your cells. It is, the science shows over and over and over that it is better for your health and your body to stay at a stable weight, like weight stability, even if it's a quote overweight, which I hate that word, I'm air quoting overweight, but you know, even if it's a overweight weight, that's better than up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And let me tell you what, as a person who has done that for decades, it's also a heck of a lot more easy to live your life.
Well, that's for sure.
When you're not just struggling constantly and fighting with that's why we have all these clothes. Like we have all these clothes in like 10 different sizes in our closets. And within 1 year, we go from this end to this end to this end to this end. It's chaotic and crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And we beat ourselves up. Like we're so our pride and our confidence is like totally built up when we finally lose the weight and we show all the pictures on social media and we do all the stuff that we dream of doing. And then when the weight comes back, which it will.
Yes.
It's not a matter of, I mean, you know, not to even throw in the little piece of this that we are all also aging as we speak. So
Maggie, did you have to say that?
I know, right? Not you, Kim, you're ageless.
Okay, good.
Everybody else is aging though, but it's just unrealistic to think that our bodies are never going to change.
Yeah.
So let's just figure out. I mean, I like to kind of tell everybody, like, let's just stop the white knuckling. Let's just take sort of a big breath and a step back and see like what we can do. And the misunderstanding is that people like you and I, they think you and I are saying, it doesn't matter what you do anything you want. It's a free for all. It doesn't matter. No, that's not what we're saying at all.
Right.
What we're saying is the way we're approaching it now is not working. So let's approach it a different way, very deliberately and very intentionally. So that was a super long, probably not even answer to your question, but it's important to understand the damage that's done in that cycling, both on our psychology and our mindset and on our physical bodies.
Yeah. So I'll come back to like what we can do instead to improve our health. I want to talk about that in a second, but like, let's talk about the damage to our physiology exactly, because we all think that, or there's a common belief out there that if we are in a higher BMI category, that we're at risk of all of the bad things, right? Like heart problems, diabetes, liver problems, stroke, like cancers, all of it is caused by being in a higher BMI category. Now, we've had a whole podcast episode about how one does not cause the other. There's a correlation. So I'll link that episode in the show notes if anybody wants to go back and listen to that. But is it true that I read like that weight cycling actually increases your risk of those things more than just being in a higher BMI category?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it can. And they're still trying to figure out what exactly the mechanism is. It's pretty evident that what you just said is true, that weight cycling is not good for our bodies and not good for our health. They're trying to figure out the problem. It's so hard to do this kind of research. I mean, you know that like there's to isolate one or two little things in
Yeah.
a living person who's eating and moving and going about the world, and trying to control for all the other factors. It's really challenging. But they I just read something recently where they were measuring inflammatory markers and like cytokines, which are sort of a measure of aggravation on the body. It's kind of an immune system is like sort of acting out because something is not at a steady state. Something is it's your immune system is designed to keep everything kind of like kosher, and nothing that doesn't belong here hangs out. But this weight cycling stimulates something, and that maybe at the level of the fat cells. This is all
Okay.
emerging science,
Yeah.
but there's people working on that. But to be honest, I don't think it really matters that much what the mechanism is in my mind, because the truth is we know, even as people with our own anecdotal experience, which is not scientific research, it's just a story, but we all know and can corroborate that, like, yeah, pretty much it hasn't helped my health. It hasn't helped your health. It hasn't helped any other person I've talked to's health. Like this, collaborative evidence, even though that's not scientific study, is like the anecdotal experience is that it doesn't help. Like losing and gaining the same 20, 30 pounds is not making my blood pressure lower or my blood sugar better or my exercise tolerance better or my stress level or anything. So I think we can all pretty much agree it's not a good model. And it's so hard on us because it never ends. There's no end point. And see, that's the problem. You get into these dieting plans or fitness programs or new whatever wellness program, and it's like for this amount of time.
Well, then what?
Yeah. And then what? Like, what's the, like, most people don't think to ask, like, that's great, I get to do this for 12 weeks. And then if I make it to the 12 weeks intact, then what? Like yeah. So I think we should find a way to eat, treat our mind and our body and our movement, and do it the same, whether you are a low weight, a high weight, whether it's January, whether it's August, whether, you live in wherever. It just like, it shouldn't change. It shouldn't really matter. And, and that's a lot of what I have a bee in my bonnet about is in the healthcare system, we are giving different advice to people in different size bodies. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's ethical. I don't think that's actually scientifically sound, because there's no reason that any human body fundamentally functions any different than any other human body.
Well, and it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me when the evidence clearly shows that there's no magic way to lose weight and keep it off. Like, we know that 95% of intentional weight loss efforts fail within 5 years. So it doesn't make sense to me that we keep prescribing weight loss when we know it's not going to work.
Right. And we all think there's just this one
magic thing.
Magic last unicorn diet out there that we haven't found. And even a lot of my clients going into this new year were saying the same thing to me. They're like, I get it. I know diets don't work, but I feel like I want to try one more time. And I was like, what is so different about this time than the other 487 times that you already tried? Like, those were all the one. There's no one. That's the whole point. This, like, just for a second, let's be honest. If there was one diet that was like the magic ticket,
well, we wouldn't be here right now.
Wouldn't this all be over? This wouldn't even be a conversation. There wouldn't be all this contemporary debate and all these programs and all this marketing and all. There would be no conversation about it, because it would be like over. We would have all either decided we're going to join up or we're not. And that's it. And it'd be over. So the fact that everybody's got dissenting opinions is the evidence that none of those are the answer to me. When you think about it like that, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. But I have a lot of empathy for like the average person who's just hearing this coming at them left and right, from the doctor, from the social media, from the food industry, from the this, and like, they just want to just shake all that noise and just, what am I supposed to do? Just somebody tell me what I'm supposed to do. They probably come to you and say, just tell me,
All the time, right?
tell me what to do.
Yep. Because it is. There's so much noise. It's so confusing. So let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt and say that when we do set a weight loss goal, let's assume that they are telling the truth, that they want to be healthy, that it's not some other under the surface goal behind the desire to lose weight. So they want to be healthy. That's their legit, honest goal. We know that trying to lose weight doesn't work long term and that it's really not the be all end all for health. So what can our people focus on instead? If health is truly their goal, what kind of habits should they be focusing on instead of the scale?
Sure. Well, here's an exercise I go through with people. I say, you're going to make a list of what is healthy to you, what healthy would look like in your life. That's a better way to say it. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be able to coach my kids' soccer team without getting out of breath. I want to be able to, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I want to sleep better. I want to feel like I don't need a slug of coffee and a nap every afternoon at 3:00. I want to be able to comfortably tie my shoes. I want to be able to whatever. Okay. You make a big, long list. And it can be other like biological stuff. Like I want to have lower blood pressure. I want to be able to hopefully reduce the amount of insulin I take. I would like to, I'm big for using pharmacology when it's necessary, but I think that's also a fair goal to sort of set for certain things. I want my heart rate to be lower. I want my knees not to hurt when I go to work or whatever it is.
Yep.
And on that list, everybody will put weight loss on the list. That's fine. Let them write it down. If they feel good about writing down weight loss, that's fine. But they're going to have this list of like, I don't know, 24 things. And then you just cross weight loss off the list. And then you look at the other 23 things and say, okay, so then let's talk about that. So you like, just as an example. Okay. So you work, maybe you're a nurse or some job where you're on your feet all day and your knees hurt. Okay, great. So first of all, we can decide how to handle knee pain. What kinds of things are going to work? Do you need stretching? Do you need different shoes? Do you need to build up your quadriceps? Do you need to hydrate more? Do you need, whatever. Okay. And you as an individual will be able to tell when that problem is getting better or worse, independently of like, you don't need a scale for any of those things. You don't need a scale to tell you whether you're able to keep up with your kids in the front yard or whatever. Like, it's just the weight becomes when you start having other stuff to focus on. You don't have to ignore the weight because it just falls out of the picture by itself.
Yes. You realize how irrelevant it is
when it's totally irrelevant. And you have so if you can go like, if you have a gym membership or you in Kim's program or whatever, and you're working week over week over week, and you walked a mile and it took you 19 minutes. And then 2 weeks later, it took 18 and a half minutes. And 2 weeks later, it took 17 and a half minutes. Like, who cares if you maybe you gained weight in that time? Who even cares? It's irrelevant because it's clear by that your cardiovascular fitness is improving, your stamina or whatever. So there's lots of things we can measure without I don't even think we need to take the weight into consideration, because the other fundamental thing is that weight, I say this all the time and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but weight is a noun. You don't like do weight. It's not a verb. It's a noun. You don't like do it. So it becomes a byproduct of some things you do perhaps, but it's not something you can directly act on. So, because when I say you can't control your weight and people say, yes, I can, I lost weight and I did this and this and this and this. I'm like, okay, well, what are the this? Cause and then they tell me, oh, I started taking a yoga class and I carried around this big gallon water bottle and I did this and I quit going to Wendy's or whatever. Like, okay, well, those are action items. So let's talk about that. And the truth is, if you sleep better and you control your stress and you stay hydrated and you have some amount of movement and, the science, I shouldn't be telling this to you because you're an expert in exercise science, but the science says the best thing to do is not be sedentary.
Yeah.
It doesn't say like you have to do CrossFit at 4:00 in the morning. It just says move some.
Do
Like
something.
the risk comes when you're completely sedentary.
Absolutely.
So that doesn't have to look like doing
Mhm.
bench presses at the gym. That can
Mhm.
be gardening or dancing or playing soccer with your kid or whatever. So we have to think outside the box a little bit at the things that are action
Mhm.
items
Mhm.
and use those. I mean, it's easier to know. And the advantage of that is for the person trying to do the action, a lot of those things will give you a really early win.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to stretch for too many days in a row before your back feels a little bit better. Not maybe
Mhm.
fixed, but
Yep.
I mean, I'm talking on the inside of a week.
Yep. 100%.
So, yeah. So then that gives you a little boost that, okay,
Yep.
maybe I can keep going. You know, when you say, well, my back pain will probably get better when I lose 30 pounds. And from, first of all, if you can even manage to do that, that's going to take a heck of a long time and a heck of a lot of grind and burn effort to, white knuckle your weight. And you're waiting for your back pain to magically get better or your marriage to get better or whatever's going to be better when
Yep.
you're skinny. um, you don't have to wait. Like you can just like start seeing these interval improvements
Yes.
like soon and keep going.
Yeah. It's funny. I often hear that in clients who come to me for a consultation. Like it seems whatever health goal they already have the amount of pounds figured out that it'll take to achieve this. And it's
Yeah,
like,
where'd they get that
how
from?
do
I
you
hear that
know?
too.
How do you know that 20 pounds will solve your knee pain problems or 30 pounds will solve your back pain problems, right? But
Right. Well,
like,
and I'll tell you that the joint pain is one that people just can't let go of
mhm.
because they say, but it's physics. I mean, you can't argue that there's not more gravitational force against the knee
No.
joint. And I'm like, well, and here's somebody explained this another way to me. I did a podcast. On my podcast was a physical therapist who works in the anti-diet space. And she gets this question 100 times more than you or I do, because this is like her business is people
Mhm.
with, physical pain. And she says, listen, I can take two people who weigh 100 pounds and take an x-ray of their knees, and the person who's got joint erosion and no cartilage and all this sort of stuff has no pain. And the other person with the perfect x-ray will be complaining of knee pain and they're using a cane.
Yeah.
So besides the fact that it's, I mean, yes, there is more physical force on a joint if you're carrying more weight, but making that a direct translation into
Mhm.
pain,
Mhm.
that's where the problem is, because there's people with lots of force on their joints that are having zero pain, and there's
Mhm.
people having joint pain that are very light bodies. So
Absolutely.
is it perhaps not related? So let's do the other stuff we can do.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
those things are in your control. I mean,
Mhm.
turning off your electronics and getting to bed at a reasonable hour, is like a little more in your control than like trying to fit into a certain size pants or whatever.
Absolutely.
You can incorporate little things, and it becomes a much more open-minded,
Mhm.
creative experience to take care of yourself, both
Yeah.
physically and with food and psychologically too, when everything is an option and you're not
Mhm.
boxed into this, magic plan or special program, or I have to do this many minutes or calories or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. That's a terrible way to live.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say, Maggie, is to be specific. And I talk about this a lot in my programming too, about setting real life goals, but like define what health actually even means to you. And then from there, you can set your action plan on like, what can you actually do? What habits can you adopt to help improve on that particular health or real life goal? Because I think this kind of brings us back full circle to where we started, is that I think we just think of health as this big umbrella term that nobody's really very clearly defined, but we just think health means fit into the normal BMI box and everything's hunky dory. But we haven't taken the time to really think about what it even means to us.
Right. And that's the only way it works, because it is individualized, because
Mhm.
our bodies operate differently. We have different experiences, we have different demands, we have different levels of access, we have different resources, every single one of us.
Mhm.
So it doesn't work in a one size fits all.
Mhm.
It just doesn't work, but we continue to try to make it's putting what is it, the square peg in the round hole, the round
Yeah,
peg in the
yeah,
square hole, whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah,
It's just an impossibility,
yeah.
but we continue to do it. And that force of the self-defeating exertion of trying to do that is what is making us all frustrated and stuck and
Mhm.
annoyed and just self-shaming.
Mhm.
Like, we don't have to do it that way.
No.
We can just, but you have to come to terms with your body needs a little more breathing room. I'm saying that metaphorically, it needs a little more breathing room to be able to just operate the way it was designed to operate
Mhm.
without you intellectually controlling everything.
Mhm. 100%.
We're an intellectual creatures, and we think we can sort of outsmart anything, including our own bodies. And we can outsmart a lot of things, but unfortunately this is not one of them. So
Mhm.
when you let it work, it really does want to work. The
That's
default operating system is like working.
yeah.
you
That's
know
one thing that I hear you say often in your podcast is our
yes,
bodies work. Like our bodies
they
work.
want to work.
Yeah.
We are in the way. We're kind of in the way, screwing it up.
Mhm.
um and if you just it's scary to let go of something that has been a security for so
Mhm.
long, though. Like, we
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
believed that we can control it, and so the idea of just not trying to control it is,
Mhm.
I mean, I appreciate it's easier for us to say that than for somebody to actually do that.
Yeah.
But when you start the experience of letting go of that a little bit, that control, and working with a community of
Mhm.
supportive people, whether that's whatever, a group or a coaching program, or you have a therapist or whoever, or just even your support network of family and friends, to help you realize that, like, there's way more to get out of life than white knuckling our bodies.
Yeah,
And then you
absolutely.
die. Like, what can you just diet? You just diet, and then you die. I mean, who wants to do that?
Doesn't sound like much fun. Not at all. No, I
Not
got I
even a
got way
little bit.
more important things to do in life
No
myself.
kidding.
Speaking of supportive community, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you and the community that you have available to support?
Yes. Well, the easy way to find me. I'm Maggie Landes, MD, everywhere. I'm most active on Instagram. That's also my website, maggielandesmd.com. But I have a free Facebook group, which is great. It's a place it's for women only. And it is a strictly, everything goes in there, except I am like super particular about no diet talk, weight talk, no before and after pictures, no specific numbers. Like, it is a totally safe space for people wanting to explore this and ask questions. And there's all levels of learners in there. There are people that have been doing and practicing intuitive eating for years, and people that are just like, didn't know that existed, and
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of stuff. So I'd love for anybody. I'm sure you put a link in the show notes, but I'm
Sure
I'm
will. Yeah.
happy to invite any women that are interested in participating in that.
Yeah, I definitely recommend going and joining that group. I'm a member of it. And so I can say, like, there are some great conversations that happen within that group. It is a really open, honest, and
It's a
supportive
kind
community.
and supportive
Yeah.
group. Exactly, because we've all been doing this same
Mm-hmm.
thing. I don't want to say we've all had the same experience, because we have not, but it's like we have all just been under the influence of diet culture for our whole entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
All of us.
Yep. And it can seem really lonely when you're unlearning all of that, right? Like it is just so normal, it seems, to always be watching your weight or being on a diet. So when you're trying something different, it's like the world looks at you funny. So,
Well, and it's hard because you still have to navigate. I mean, I hope at some point in the future it's not so challenging in the world, but you can sit here and talk to Kim and I all day, that you still got to go, and you go to happy hour with your lady friends that are all talking about which diet they started. And then you go
Mhm.
to the gym, and there's before and after pictures all over the wall. Then you get on the internet, and I mean, you have to have somebody got your back
Yeah.
to navigate this,
Hmm.
because until our culture changes, it's challenging, but it's so much better.
No.
Holy cow. And then those of you that have children, I mean, what we really want to do ultimately is break this generational dieting cycle for our kids. So our children, in particular, our daughters, aren't growing up in the same crazy place like we have.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
That is a really great note to finish on.
Yes. Thanks for having me, Kim.
Well, thank you so much. It was fun. And thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom. You always bring such value to our listeners. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Absolutely. Happy New Year.
Well, there you are. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're looking to connect with Maggie, the best place to do that is inside her Facebook community, The Diet Disruptors with Maggie Landes, MD. You can grab that link in the show notes, and all of her social media, website, and podcast info is there for you as well. Now, if you've listened to this and it's all making sense and you're interested in learning how to set goals beyond the scale, then I encourage you to check out my upcoming webinar that's happening on January 12th. This will be workshop style, and I'll be teaching you my unique system for setting goals that actually stick, while walking you through the process of setting your own goals for the year ahead. I'll coach you in real time to help you identify your deeper motivation so you can move past the fear and needing to fix yourself and instead set inspired goals that will help you expand into more of the amazing person you already are. So you can register on my website to get access to the webinar and also get the workbook that goes along with it. It'll be a really high value class where you'll leave with a good solid plan for yourself. And for those who want more, I will also be chatting about my coaching services and offering a very special bonus to those who decide that this is the year to stop dieting and embrace self-acceptance. Now, if you know you can't make it live, but you want this class, go ahead and register anyway, because I can send you the recording if I have your email. And if you're listening later and you missed this, then just send me an email or a DM over on Instagram and I'll make sure to hook you up. Thanks so much for listening today from both Maggie and myself. Happy New Year, and here's to your radiant vitality. Thanks for tuning into the Power in Motion podcast today. If you love what you're learning here, then I invite you to take the next step of embodying these concepts into your own life so that you can live your healthiest, happiest life and never again feel held back by your body. Coaching is the fastest, most efficient pathway to taking what you know in your head to actually applying it and seeing results. Whether you're looking to make changes around movement, food, body image, or all three, I'm here to help you nurture a kind, respectful, and trusting relationship with your body so you can feel your very best. Click the link in the show notes to book a free consultation, and together we'll uncover what's getting in the way of you having the results you want. You'll leave this call knowing exactly what you need to work on, and together we'll explore whether one of my coaching offers is a good fit for you. I can't wait to meet you.